Uh, do you have an update on Sam Leboki?
No, not as of yet. We do not.
Adam Sparks.
Yeah, Tim, over the years, I haven't really seen you guys recruit against Tennessee for that many players. Is that the case? And if so, why is that?
I think we run into them every so often. I mean, there's certainly some state kids that we'll both compete for, but Tony has been he's been active in a lot of different spots. You know, you look at his recruiting background, and he's gone into Tennessee, obviously, but certainly gotten some good players from out of the state as well. But yeah, we'll cross lines every so often and go against him. He's done tremendous job in recruiting. He's always been a good recruiter, though. I've brought this up several times, but you look at the schools that he's left, whether it's TCU or whether it's Arkansas, and look at what they've done. He's left those schools in tremendous shape by the kids that he's recruited and the depth of the players that exist in those schools.
I talked to Parker Nolan about choosing you guys over Tennessee, and Vitello had just gotten there. And Parker said that he chose Vanderbilt primarily for the coaches. What do you remember of that recruiting of Parker Nolan?
Well, Parker was committed to Middle Tennessee State first, so he was already at another school. Then he decommitted, and when he decommitted, then that's when we started to communicate with him, because we're very familiar with the Farragut School. We've had several good players out of that school, and he was a young man that we felt possessed good offensive skill and had some defensive versatility as well. So we just got in there and started recruiting him, and had him up here with his mom, and we were just fortunate to get him.
Thanks.
Dennis Reed.
Coach, thanks for doing this. You obviously deal with tons of parents, and I was wondering, but not many parents that are
Betsy, we'll jump over to you.
Hi, Coach Corbin. I have a couple questions about Christian Little. So first, like, what stood out about him when you were recruiting him? He committed at 14. So what do you kind of look for when guys are that young?
Well, that was someone that Brownie had seen in a tournament and started the communication process back when you could communicate to those kids. That was several years ago. What we liked about him was his size, his dad's pedigree in the game, his confidence at a young age, his ability to pitch, and certainly having seen all of that at the age of 14, understanding that there's probably going to be some good development moving forward. And he's developed well. He's obviously gotten bigger, and he has a skill set that I think stands to give him the opportunity to be a good pitcher in this program.
And what were some of the pieces that needed to fall into place to get him here in January? And have you ever had a player enroll early before?
We have. We've only had one, though. That was Chris Harvey several years ago. That was back in 11 and 12. Yeah. I think the most important thing, Betsy, is the young man has to want to do it. If they don't want to do that, then it's not worth considering. There has to be a level of maturity, and there certainly has to be some academic expertise in order for that to happen at Vanderbilt. Otherwise, Vanderbilt's not going to consider it. So there has to be a resume of success in the classroom that shows that there's some competency jumping into a level of academics that is pretty difficult to begin with for an 18, 19-year-old, let alone a 17-year-old. And he was able to show that. Plus, this wasn't done on a whim. This was something that was discussed for quite some time. So the parents wanted it for the child wanted it, and we felt like it was a a good chance to take it with this young man.
And then my last question is, what has impressed you the most about him in the past 2 months and his adjustment to the college game?
I think the adjustment to the environment's been the most impressive thing, because that's not an easy thing. He came in here in January. He was very patient during the course of the fall. The only thing that kept him away from here in the fall was the ACT, which he wasn't able to take. He had signed up for it 7 times, and 7 times it got canceled because of COVID. So I think his ability the continuance of the motivation to want to be here, getting here in January, blending his personality in with this group, which this is not an easy group to blend into right away. And I say that not because they're not inclusive, but because they're very demanding of how a young man enters the environment and what they do. There's the thing about the group is they're accepting of individuals, but they're not accepting of individual behaviors. That being someone that they can't blend into an inner circle and an organization with the mindset of what I'm doing for the group, and I'm doing it for the team. And I think his ability to do that was comforting to all of us. And he's still growing. This is, it is a very difficult thing for a 17-year-old kid to come in, but I think he's done a nice job academically, and he's done a nice job fitting in, and fitting in is probably just as important as anything else.
Joe Rexroad.
Sorry. Tim, with Tennessee rising the way it has, if this is something that can be sustained, it can be repeated, where we have these series between you two that gets such attention, and if both programs can be, I guess at that higher level, is there any payoff for baseball in the state? I mean, what does that mean?
Well, sure. I would tell you that it has a tremendous payoff, because whether it's Tennessee or Vanderbilt, and if you have 2 teams that are surging and moving in a positive direction nationally, then there's some intrigue with parents. There's some intrigue with younger kids to inspire kids to want to play. I think we've had that effect on kids to some degree inside the state for the last 10, 15 years. And I would like to think so anyway. And I know that Tennessee, at least in the short term, they've always had it. They have. I mean, Tennessee's Tennessee. Tennessee, it's a state school. It encompasses a lot of fans within the state, rightly so. And they've always been very competitive with tremendous resources for those sports. And I just think that baseball, when I first got here, Tennessee was a tremendous program. They were Chris Burke, Todd Helton. I was at Clemson at the time, and those were very difficult games for us to play. And the thing about Tennessee is they can be good very, very quick, because they have the ability to do so. They have the pulling power to do so. And Tony's found that. But I truly believe Tony could go really anywhere because of the type of coach he is and the type of recruiter he is, and develop a good program. It just so happens he's doing it at Tennessee, and they're doing an outstanding job.
Chris Lee.
Yeah, Tim, quick question with another unrelated follow-up. And I'm sorry if I missed this. I didn't catch the first question. Have you announced a pitching plan for Game 3 yet?
Not yet, but no, we just haven't. No.
Second one, about the bunt that Max dropped down last night against the Shift. I'm shocked as I watch Major League games how often that side of the field is open and nobody does that. Are you surprised, as you watch baseball in general, that more teams don't take advantage of that? And what is your philosophy? Do you teach the bunt to everybody in your program to have that in their pocket under that circumstance?
Yes, for your first question, I am surprised a little bit. Yastrzemski laid one down. I came in last night after our game and watched San Francisco and Cincinnati, and they had shifted him in what was a very close game. Surprising to me that they did, but they left the third baseman somewhere between second base bag and the third base bag, and Yastrzemski put it down and got a base hit. Why more people don't do it, I'm not quite sure, but I would tell you that it has more to do with confidence than anything else. That has to be something you own. And in order to own it, you have to practice it. And if you don't practice it, then you're renting it. And if you're renting it, then you're not going to want to use it because you just don't have confidence in it. I think Max's situation is, yes, we teach it. I know you've been here long enough to where I got nicknamed what, built or whatever.
Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt. Well, thank you. You may have coined that actually.
I did not, but I've seen it.
You know
Yeah.
the person, yes. Well, anyway, yes, we still bunt a lot. But, I've always felt like this is philosophical, but bunting is like a precursor to hitting. It trains your eyes more than anything else. But you got to have it in your back pocket because at any point in time, last night, when we wanted to restart an inning, Max was able to do so. But he had the confidence to do it because he's done a lot of it. So I do feel like it is a skill that should be learned, and certainly something that I impress upon the kids when they come to camp, because I want to tell them that that's part of offense. That's part of how you move offenses. And in case in point, last night with Yaz, that's how he started a big inning.
Kayla Anderson. Oh, can't hear you, Kayla. We cannot. We'll come back to you in a second. Evan Grant, we'll go over to you.
Hey, Coach Corbin, I had two very general questions, and I can't actually tell you that having been at the game last night, Joey Gallo did try and lay down a bunt against the shift, but not successful. So I guess he wasn't actually owning it. Two very general questions. What is it that you look for beyond, you mentioned the resume of success and obviously physical talent, but what is it that you look for beyond those two things in bringing a player to Vanderbilt?
Mental organization and the ability to communicate. I think those two things are very valuable in someone that can come here and involve themselves in this program, because there's a lot asked of a person. Not everyone wants to sit in a classroom before they train. Not everyone wants to live. I would say there's some players that we've recruited here that they get here and they go, this program may not offer me enough individual freedom. I would say that we're certainly not the military, because we're not. I think this program has a lot of fun inside of it, but there's a lot of demands put on the kids, and there's a high level of standards that are asked upon the kids on a daily basis. And that takes a lot of energy to do, and it takes a lot of energy to live up to. But I think if you're mentally organized inside this program, you've got a chance to succeed and understand the importance of why you're here and what you're doing inside of the organization.
And the elements that you just mentioned, mental organization and communication and how it works at Vanderbilt, I know this isn't your number one goal, but how does that help your players acclimate to professional baseball successfully?
Well, I just think they can understand, they can put together a plan and a routine that will allow them to stay consistent in life, which will allow them to get on the field with a little bit of mental freedom. I don't think you can get into any space unless you're freed up mentally to really put forth what you need to be mentally and physically present inside of a situation that's very demanding. If you can't get there and be mentally free enough to do that, it makes it very difficult. It creates a lot of anxiety. And I think whether it's academics or whether it's life, the young men that come in here and have the ability to thrust themselves fully in a 3-hour, 4-hour, 5-hour time allotment or time period, they're free and they're organized. They just have the ability to get there and be there. And if you're not there mentally, then you're not here physically either. And I think it speaks to maturity more than anything else. So I think holistically, if you're asking me one big word that would be prominent among many of them would be maturity in the development of the front side of their brain.
Great. Thank you very, very much.
Mhm.
Caleb, we'll come back to you. I think you just flipped the switch the other way. It looks like you're muted.
It's been a day.
There we go. We got you.
You got me now. All right. Hey, coach, I'm just curious, with the pandemic last year cutting off the season, a lot of these players are, getting to play some SEC baseball for the first time. How have they adapted to the week in and week out grind with these teams? And what stood out to you the most?
Well, at least for us, I think, Kayla, the first 4 weeks, we were on the road 3 times, one of those being Oklahoma State. So it was a Big 12 opponent, but yet for all intents and purposes, it was an SEC opponent in terms of how good they were and where we had to go to play those games. I think what stood out to me most is the maturity that existed in the hotel, the travel situation, and being present for those games because they were difficult. We had success against Oklahoma State to some degree, won 2 out of 3, and then had success against Missouri and then LSU. I think as you proceed through the conference, you start learning more traits about your team and where they're vulnerable and where the warts are. And I think the quicker you can identify what those are, the quicker you can get to them and improve upon them. And I think that's where we are right now. We just got taken down pretty hard by a very good Georgia team, and they played very well. And I'm not going to say we didn't play very well because I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think the other teams put you in a position where you don't perform as well, but it's not all about you. It's the other team that does that. And I think Georgia did that to us. Now I want to see how we're going to react to this particular situation, which I'm not minimizing the strength of any team that will play, but this team that we're about to play this weekend is going to be a very difficult team to play for a lot of different reasons, not just because they'll be at home, but because of who they are and their baseball personality. It's very strong in my opinion.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Simon Gibbs.
Hi, Coach. My question is kind of twofold. First off, with the new format for hosting regional, super regionals, did Vanderbilt submit a bid to host one? And also with the NCAA releasing a statement yesterday that they may be banning postseason play in certain states with transgender bills that they do not support. Like, is it possible to host one in Tennessee, or is it still unclear?
Yes, it's very possible to host one in Tennessee and at Vanderbilt for that matter. I spoke to Candace this morning. It wasn't to the bid process, but it was about other things that had something to do with hosting. And yeah, I think we'll be able to do that, and we would want to do that. Vanderbilt would be very supportive of us hosting a regional again.
David White.
Hey, Coach, I got a couple questions. What is the status of Tate Colwick, and is there a timetable for his return?
Well, he's alive and he's moving around pretty well. And he took BP yesterday. I would say that right now, Dave, he probably can do everything that his injury will allow him to do and not injure it anymore. And I think that's always the magic answer that you want to hear from a doctor is, okay, if I play, am I going to injure it more? And I think the information that he's gotten back is he can play and he's not going to injure it because he had something taken out. He didn't have anything that was fixed internally. So I think, yeah, there's a chance. I just don't know how much of a chance. We'll see today. I think every day that goes by, Dave, though, he gets better. And I think now it just becomes more, he's a tough kid. he's a football player and he's been through a lot of aches and pains before. So if anyone's going to come back and work through this tape, we'll do it.
And coach, one more thing, Kumar got hit hard last week for the first time in a long time, maybe early in his freshman year. How do you see him responding to that this Friday night?
Oh, he's a good responder now, Dave. He did and he didn't. I think the first inning he got ambushed, and then that sixth inning he got ambushed too. I think the thing about Kumar in that particular situation is it happened so quick. It was like 4 pitches. Next thing you know, it's 3-0, and then in the sixth inning it was 6-1. But he'll respond well. He's in a good frame of mind, and he doesn't have the outings that he's had in the short time that he's been at Vanderbilt if he's not a quick responder. And he's a very good, he's mentally tough kid, and he's very responsive to challenges.
Thanks, coach.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Harris.
Hey, Coach, good to see you.
Good to see you, Chris.
Yeah. This question is kind of piggybacking off of Simon's. You sounded fairly confident in your answer about you guys having the ability, were it to happen, to be able to host a regional, a super regional, despite given the fact that what the bill and the legislation has been passed here. Have you gotten any assurances from the NCAA that that would be all right for you guys to do that? I guess I'm asking about kind of where your confidence comes from.
My confidence comes from the university itself, but I no assurances. I don't know that. As confident as I am personally doesn't mean that we're going to have one here. I know the biggest factor, Chris, is how Vanderbilt baseball takes care of business, because we have to do our part. If we don't do our part, then it doesn't really matter what bills are passed or what have you. We're going to be going somewhere else. So I think that's the most important part. And but no, I don't have any assurances. No.
Billy Derrick.
Hey, Coach. Talk about what it's been like to get fans back in the stands at LSU. There was a great crowd there. In Knoxville, it's going to be another really good crowd. But how do you think your players have responded to that, and what it kind of feels like to get those fans back?
For us, it's been a little bit of the same. I mean, we've got fans back for certain, but it's spotty. So I don't think it has the same. Well, it doesn't have the same feeling that it did at the end of 19. And I'm not even talking about the super regional and the regional. I'm talking about just the regular season, generally speaking. And then it's getting there, I think, but you can still feel like we're in a virus world. It's spotty. I wouldn't say disappointing is the word I would use. It's just, you'd like to see more seats filled, but from a health standpoint, that can't happen. And from a code standpoint, that can't happen. But it's good to see other places that you do see a lot of people. I mean, you certainly saw that at Ole Miss, and we'll see it at Ole Miss, and we saw more of it at LSU. I thought they had a really nice crowd, but it was still spotty there too. But I think we're getting there. The bottom line is we're playing, and that's the most important thing, Billy. Really, I was on a talk radio this morning, and they had me on the 2 days before we were supposed to play Kentucky last year, and I just said, oh my gosh, that I remember that now. It was such a miserable feeling. So the fact that we're playing right now is the most important thing.
Adam Sparks, we'll flip the last one over to you.
Yeah, Tim, just a follow on Parker Nolan. Parker Nolan was sort of an overachiever, sort of a late bloomer at Farragut, didn't get SEC offers till about junior year, I think. Most of the guys that commit to you guys are like 3 or 4 years out from college. How do y'all balance getting those early 5-star guys with recruiting, leaving spots for the late bloomers that you could pick up?
That's very difficult, because we try, well, with the years that go by and the assistants that we've had. Now we've had Mike Baxter, David Macias, and Scott Brown now for quite some time, but I think our decision-making process now, we've kind of changed a little bit in terms of not moving as fast on the freshmen and sophomores because of the unknowns of where their body will go, where their mind will go. The thing about young kids, when you get an offer at an early age, it almost feels like sometimes, unless that kid's very motivated, that they've reached a finish line and they stop eating. The kid like Parker Nolan, who hasn't offered, he keeps eating because he's hungry. He's hungry for an opportunity. And a lot of times those kids supersede the kids that have been fed at an early age. And I think that's just something to keep in mind. And it goes back to my first comment about what is a valuable trait of a kid that we bring in. And it's the maturity trait. It's the understanding that, okay, I may have gotten offered an opportunity at Vanderbilt, but I have not reached the finish line. And the reality is, if I go to Vanderbilt, it's going to be very difficult to compete there. So I need to continue moving in a direction that's going to put me at a level where I can be the player that they think I'm going to be, and even more. But that takes a very strong mindset, a certain level of maturity, and a good set of parents if they have them.
Good deal. Thanks.
Yep.
Great. Thanks for your questions, everybody. Coach, thanks for your time today.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks, Corbs. Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
We'll be joined by Jack Leiter here in a few moments as well. Jack, thanks for joining us. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. How are you?
Great. Thanks for joining us. As always, please utilize the raise your hand feature if you have a question for Jack. Chris Lee, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Jack, it's been remarkable to watch you with the fastball just over and over, including, the South Carolina game where you didn't have your other pitches and they knew it was coming and they couldn't hit it. But what's the key to that been? Has it been changing eye levels? Has it been velocity? Has it been taking something off it? Why is it that pitch just keeps working for you no matter who you're playing?
Well, I don't want to, get too into the metrics of it, but the metrics do play well for a fastball that, has that riding life. So down in the zone, hitters kind of seem to dismiss it as thinking it's going to be down, and it kind of just stays up and ends up stealing me a strike. And then up in the zone, it's like any fastball, it's hard to lay off and hard to not swing at. So I think I really just use the metrics to my advantage, and then, just find the right times to throw it, sequence it off of other pitches, and kind of just work it off of other pitches, even if they're not working that day.
Joe Rexroad.
I'm unmuted. Sorry. Hey, Jack, I just wondering with this series, you guys have so many big series, obviously, in this league week after week, but the energy around the team, the discussion around the team, is it different this week? Do you feel anything different now that you guys can focus fully on Tennessee? And what do you anticipate going into Knoxville?
I definitely don't think it's any different than any other week. We really do try to take every game one game at a time, and treat every game as though it's, the national championship, the last game. And we saw that last year. Our season got taken away from us, and we're really just doing our best to stay in the moment and not take anything for granted, and, just keep trying to get better and better every single day, because we know that we have some large end of the season goals. And in order to get there, we have to really take it day by day and get a lot better.
Kayla Anderson.
Hi, Jack. I'm just curious with you. I mean, you got a little bit of taste of college ball last year, but not SEC play. How fun has it been to kind of go up every single weekend against teams that you just never know what you're going to get, but you're going to get their best shot every weekend? I'm assuming as a pitcher, that's been fun for you.
It definitely has. It's a lot of fun to be playing again and playing with our teams and our team, and sharing each and every moment with them. And whether it's the good or the bad, the highs or the lows, I think it's it's each and every day that we're building memories with each other that we're going to remember, and friendships are continuing to develop that are going to last a lifetime long after my time at Vanderbilt. And I think that's the most powerful thing.
Yeah, how does Corbs really balance that with you guys? Because he says you're such a mature group when it comes to off the field, but you still have fun. And then when you go on the field, you're taking care of business. As a coach, it's probably what makes him so great. But how do you see him? How does he do that?
Well, I think from day one, we have a culture and an expectation that's set for us. And like you said, it's not to act older than we are. I mean, he knows that we're still old teenagers or young 20-year-old kids, and I think that's the most important thing. The time in the locker room, the time off the field, and spending it with the guys is so much fun, and that's where a lot of the memories are made. And in my opinion, that's where the performance on the field gets elevated when we get closer off the field. So I do think that's important, but again, it is the culture that's kind of pushed upon us right when we get here, and I think that's important. And meeting those expectations, but also developing relationships off the field.
Evan Grant.
Hey, Jack, I'm curious, you just mentioned the word culture. So how would you describe the culture at Vanderbilt to an outsider?
I think it's hard to put into words. It's really a special place, but you feel it. You feel it from the moment you get a call from Coach Brown or whoever scouted you in high school, and then you take your first visit. You really just start to understand it more and more, and then you really don't understand it until you get here and get into the program. But I mean, just the fact that all the pro guys really want to come back in the off season and kind of share their knowledge with the current guys and keep up communication with them. I think that's what makes it such a special place, and that's just kind of proof that everyone loves being here, and when they leave, they miss their time spent here.
Yeah, that was the other thing I wanted to ask is it seems like you kind of addressed this a little bit in that you had a perception of Vanderbilt when you took your trip and came here. And so now actually being part of the program, has that changed at all? Has it just reaffirmed everything? What's your take after spending time inside the program?
Yeah, I think it definitely reaffirms it. If anything, that feeling gets stronger of the fact that it's such a special place, and I think it becomes more and more special. And again, we haven't even experienced, my class or the freshmen hasn't experienced what the end of the season, that home stretch is like in terms of the support we get from the fans and the alumni here. So I think that's going to be really cool to see, and we're all excited for that. But again, it's taking it day by day, so we're not going to get too ahead of ourselves.
Great, thank you.
David White.
Hey, Jack. Last weekend was kind of a body blow to the team. Last night was a little rebound. How do you feel like the team has responded to last weekend going forward?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good Georgia team. I don't know what the stats or the record says, but that's a really good team, and that's what we want. We want to play good teams, and obviously that was a test for us, and we came up short. But it's like I said, it's we're taking it day by day, and we knew from the beginning. We knew when we were whatever we were before that weekend, 23-3 or something like that. We knew that we had to get better, and I think that's the most important thing is continuing to get better, and our only competition is really ourselves. And if we can push ourselves and push each other to get better each and every day, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what we did last weekend. It kind of matters where we're at the end of the season.
Thanks.
Billy Derrick.
Hey, Jack, from year one to year two, what do you think was your biggest, point of growth, and kind of what allowed you to take that next step as a pitcher?
I think it's always been for me that growth mindset, and I continue to take that mindset into each and every day. And it's getting into this program freshman year, and looking up to all the guys who succeeded in years before that, And obviously watching the way they work, kind of being quiet freshman year, not talking too much, just observing and listening to their wisdom. And I think that's the most important thing, again, about the culture here, is that we use each other to get better. Obviously you have an amazing coaching staff, and I think that's even reinforced with the teammates that we have, because everyone has their own knowledge and everyone has their own experiences. So we kind of bring that together through, communication on and off the field. And I think that makes everybody better.
Dennis Reed.
Jack, you obviously grew up in a family of pitchers, and I've heard your dad tell the story. When you were young and coming up as a baseball player, he was fine with you being a position player, a third baseman, whatever you wanted to be. Did you feel like you wanted to play another position, and when did it become apparent that maybe pitching was the right route for you?
Yeah, for me, I was, 7th, 8th grade, even going into freshman year, I was definitely way on the smaller side in terms of size. So I always had a good arm for my size, but it was always that. It was always he has a good arm for his size. But compared to the bigger and stronger kids on the field at the same time as me, I mean, there was no comparison. So on my travel teams and things like that, I wasn't the go-to pitcher. So I, kind of just put my head down, worked hard off the field and in the pitching department. And then I really did work hard as a hitter. I was thinking, if I'm not going to be a pitcher, then nobody's going to work harder than me in the batting cages. I was hitting every day, and I thought maybe I'd play second base or something at the next level. And then, continued to work on mechanics and the pitching mindset. My dad loves talking about that stuff. He can talk about it all day. So I think that's really important to have someone to learn from there. And then as I started to grow and, take my time in the weight room in the off season more seriously, I think it kind of came together on the mound, and I knew I was going to be a pitcher.
Did you enjoy working with him? Because that can go both ways with parents that are successful at something. Some kids kind of repel against it. And I don't know how hard once you decide you want to be a pitcher, did you enjoy working with your dad because of who your dad was, or did he back off and let other people work with you instead?
Like any other kid, really. I think it's pretty rare for a kid to not question their parents, even though they are so knowledgeable. So when I was, younger, 12, 13 years old, I would, get into arguments. Like I didn't want to hear it anymore, but I always was listening, and everything I've learned, I never had any other pitching coaches or anything like that. So everything I've learned has come from him. And, mechanically, I made a lot of strides. I made a lot of strides since I was, 12, 13 years old, and my mechanics were so different back then. So I mean, he's pretty much the sole reason for those changes in my mechanics through high school. So no, as I got older, I definitely enjoyed listening to his advice.
You enjoyed being part of that whole Leiter. I mean, it's not just your dad, as you know. A couple of lighters have made it to the pro baseball. You enjoyed being part of that clan now, part of that legacy?
Definitely. My uncle Mark and my cousin Mark Jr. They both watch my starts when they can, and I get texts on feedback or compliments, whatever they have to say that day regarding my starts. So it's not just my dad giving me feedback after each game. So I think that's really cool.
Thank you.
Chris Harris.
Hey, Jack, Tim always talks about, being present and living in the moment and that type of thing. I'm curious as to how you soak in and absorb the present and the moment that you're in, given that, you're out there, the prep work and the grind, and you're out there to perform. How do you appreciate those instances and what you've got now, given what you've got ahead of you?
I think I'm definitely someone who's always been able to stay in that present. And I think a lot of it is what my parents have told me from a younger age, just the whole, the gratitude talk of, everything can be kind of taken away in an instant, and you have to kind of appreciate each moment. And obviously that's easier said than done. Sometimes you start to look ahead, even within a start, leading up to a start, I'm sometimes after my first inning, there's already thoughts creeping in of, all right, let's get deep into this game, whatever it is. But all those are based on results, and it's kind of important to get back to the process and enjoy that process. So whether it's a game or whether it's looking at the whole season, it's really just trying to take it each moment at a time.
Chris Lee.
Yeah, Jack. You guys obviously have a target on your back, given the titles, and you do, particularly given your success. Now do you go to a place where you have the Lindsey Nelson legends, who are a student group who's been in the spotlight a good bit for the antics and heckling kids? I don't want you to betray any private conversations or things that need to stay that way, but is that something you guys talk about going into a hostile situation like that, where you're probably going to hear a lot of stuff from a group that's been doing it and frankly has gotten a reaction out of other coaches and other players?
I think going on the road, you really see where your team is at in terms of relationships and that kind of culture aspect that we were talking about earlier. I think that's the most important part, and Coach Corbin has said that. A lot of us haven't really experienced that. We did a little bit Oklahoma State and definitely LSU. And I mean, he just tells us the most important thing is that when you go on the road, oftentimes it's everyone against us. So we stay in our small, tight-knit group and you know, we just do our thing. We do our thing like we would here. And I think that really is the most important thing, is staying together and focusing on us and not getting too worried about or involved with what's going on around us.
Billy, we'll throw it over to you to close us out.
Hey, Jack. Yeah, I mean, the SEC is top of the notch in terms of college baseball. As you know, what have been some things that might have surprised you about playing in this conference? Because, you know, you can always talk about how good it is, but it's probably easier said than done. So what have been some of the things that might have surprised you about this conference and just how good the hitters are?
Yeah, I mean, the hitters are really, really good. And I think that's important. And I mean, that's what you want. That's what you want when you come to Vanderbilt. You look for that. And, you know, over quarantine, I faced some minor league guys in my area in New Jersey and live at bats. And I really do think that a lot of the hitters in the SEC just stack up so well against really good professional hitters. So I think it's important. You have to be on your game. If you make a mistake, they're probably going to make you pay. And that's the most important thing is, you know, you don't want to be just kind of cruising through and making bad pitches and getting away with it. You kind of want that feedback. And I think the hitters in the SEC have definitely done that. And that's important.
Great. Jack, thanks again for joining us today. And thanks everybody for your time.
Thank you.